Welcome back to another disturbing journey in the southern underworld. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you to please like, comment, subscribe, and share this devilish delight with your horror friends and fam. Engagement is essential, and it helps our little channel grow. Good evening, frequent flyers and fearful first-timers. Welcome aboard Flight 2317, where our in-flight entertainment is to die for, and our final destination is anyone's guess. Tonight, we invite you to fasten your seatbelts and adjust your soul to its full upright position as we embark on a journey that gives new meaning to non-stop flight. Our tale features a crew that's dying to serve you and a co-pilot you won't see coming or going. So sit back, relax, and prepare for Devil's Passenger, a story that proves, sometimes, the real hell isn't the airport security line, it's what's waiting for you at 35,000 feet. Now let's take off into a world where airline food isn't the scariest thing on the menu, and red-eye flight takes on a whole new blood-curdling meaning. Devil's Passenger. Flight 2317 traced a line through the sky, cruising at the impressive height of 35,000 feet. The passengers were lulled into a false sense of security by the steady hum of the engines and the gentle turbulence that mimicked a cradle's rocking. Serena Jenkins, an experienced flight attendant with countless flights to her name, moved down the narrow aisle with practiced ease, serving drinks as if it were second nature. A piercing scream from the front galley broke the calm inside the cabin. Serena's heart pounded in her chest as she raced toward the source of the noise. Her colleague Brian stood rooted to the spot, his shaking hand pointing at an open cockpit door that revealed a disturbing sight, an empty flight deck. "They're gone," he managed to say. "Both pilots, they're just gone." Serena pushed down the fear, her professional training kicking in. "Check the bathrooms," she instructed him. "I'll search through the cabin." Brian nodded and hurried off on his task. Serena addressed the bewildered passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen," she started, "please remain seated and stay calm. We're dealing with a small issue, but there's no cause for alarm." She methodically checked each row with growing apprehension, hoping to find the missing pilots tucked away somewhere unexpected. But they were nowhere in sight. Brian returned, his usually tanned complexion ghostly and pale under the harsh overhead lights. "There's no sign of them," he said breathlessly. "Serena, what do we do?" Before she could answer him, another scream echoed from below, coming from the cargo hold. Serena and Brian exchanged frightened stares of pure fear. "Stay here," she whispered. "Keep everyone calm. I'm going to see what that sound was." Serena picked up a flashlight from the emergency kit and headed into the belly of the plane. A faint metallic scent tickled her nose. The cargo hold was a maze of luggage and shipping crates, their shadows shifting ominously under her flashlight's beam. Turning a corner, she held back a gasp at what she encountered. The pilot and co-pilot lay scattered on the metal floor, their bloodied bodies contorted into the most grotesque of positions. Their faces were locked in terror, eyes wide with fear, their mouths open and frozen mid-scream. She stumbled backward, her stomach roiling. As she turned to flee, she noticed a glint of metal, a crucifix clutched tightly in the pilot's dead hand. Serena raced back to cabin level, slamming the cargo hold door behind her. She grabbed Brian's arm, pulling him close enough that she felt his shaky breaths against her cheek. "They're dead," she whispered into his ear. "Both of them are dead." Brian's face drained of color until he resembled a specter himself. "But who's flying this plane then?" he asked. As if answering his question, the plane suddenly veered sharply to one side, causing the passengers to scream. Luggage tumbled from the overhead compartments. Serena fought against gravity to reach the cockpit again, gripping anything solid for support. When she opened the cockpit door, the scene before her defied reason. Controls moved on their own as if manipulated by unseen hands. Words materialized on the windshield, written by an invisible finger. "Souls for safe passage." A rolling shiver coursed Serena's spine as she slammed the door shut, reeling from disbelief. A tap on her shoulder made her jump. An elderly woman stood there, her dark eyes shining with an eerie light. "It's hungry," she rasped in a voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. "We must feed it." Before Serena could react, the old woman lunged at the closest passenger, a young man engrossed in his laptop, unaware of the imminent danger. She lifted him above her head and charged toward the cockpit with strength that contradicted her age and frailty. "No!" Serena screamed, but it was too late. Everything was spiraling out of control. The hatchway exploded open, and the young man's body was suspended mid-air before he was sucked into the void of space. The cabin depressurized with a loud snap. Oxygen masks dropped as the passengers screamed in panic, their cries reverberating like trapped animals. Just then, Brian appeared, his face stained with blood from a forehead wound. "What's going on?" Serena gripped his shoulders, her fingers digging into his shirt. "Something's taken control of the plane," she shouted back. "It wants sacrifices." As if to validate her statement, the aircraft righted itself, the emergency exit ceiling shut by an invisible hand. Panic ensued within the cabin. Passengers turned against one another, some shielding their loved ones while others searched for another victim to pacify the phantom pilot. Serena's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and plans. There had to be an escape from this madness, a way to save everyone. Her recollection returned to the crucifix she'd spotted earlier in the cargo hold. Hopeful, she dashed back to the cargo hold, sidestepping flailing limbs and pleas for help along the way. She lifted the crucifix from its resting place in the captain's lifeless grip, murmuring an apology. A jolt ran through her arm as she clasped the cold metal. Forbidden knowledge surged in her mind, ancient rituals, horrifying chants. Serena was terrified but knew what had to be done. When she re-entered the chaotic cabin, 3 more seats were vacant, their absence noticeable. Serena battled her way to the cockpit, clutching tightly onto the crucifix. The door ominously swung open at her presence. The controls moved autonomously, but now Serena could discern a faint figure in the pilot's seat. "Enough," Serena declared, her voice bold as she brandished the crucifix. The shadow recoiled with a hiss akin to steam releasing from a pressure cooker. Words materialized on the windshield. "Fool, you cannot stop me." Serena started to chant, the words foreign and unfamiliar. The crucifix warmed in her hand, radiating an otherworldly light. The shadow convulsed, its wings appearing momentarily and its claws slashing at the air. The plane trembled beneath them, alarms sounding as they lost altitude. Serena chanted louder. A bright light shone from the crucifix, illuminating the cockpit. The shadow let out one last deafening shriek as it vanished into thin air, the sound reverberating off the walls of the plane. The controls suddenly went dead, and for a terrifying moment, they were hurtling downward with no way to stop. Serena lunged for the yoke and years of simulator training took over. She wrestled with the dead controls, pulling up on them with all her might. The ground continued to rush toward them, the city lights expanding until they were blinding dots of white and yellow. Serena gritted her teeth against gravity's pull until it was painful, her muscles straining against the tremendous force. At the last possible moment, she managed to pull up just above the rooftop of the hangar, grazing a few treetops before crashing onto the runway. The passengers squealed and the jarring impact forced nausea into Serena's throat. "Steady now," she whispered. "Almost home." The aircraft careened to a halt, the screech of metal scraping against concrete slicing through the cabin. Serena's fingers turned ghostly white as they clung desperately to the seat, her body sagging under the weight of bone-deep fatigue, her mind teetering on the precipice of oblivion. Yet in this state of overwhelming exhaustion, a small flame of gratitude flickered. She had made it out alive. She twisted in her seat, intending to share this momentary triumph with Brian. But instead of meeting familiar eyes awash with relief, she was confronted by an uncanny emptiness. The once lively cabin now resonated with an unnerving silence, row after row of vacant seats stretching out like tombstones behind her. An icy dread slithered into Serena's heart as she grasped a horrifying truth. There had never been any passengers. The entity hadn't desired the souls of unsuspecting innocents for safe passage, it hungered for hers alone. Emergency vehicles swarmed around the marooned plane like bees to honey. Their harsh lights punctuated the reality that Serena could neither comprehend nor accept. In her grip, she felt the crucifix pulsating with a malevolent energy that seemed almost sentient. A smile slowly stretched across Serena's lips, even as terror gnawed at her gut. Her eyes glittered unnaturally bright in the dim light, reflecting not just luminescence, but something far more sinister lurking within. The entity may have been expelled from their realm, but its essence remained within her. As rescue workers approached the plane, their voices cutting through the symphony of wind and rain outside, Serena straightened up and smoothed her uniform with shaky hands. She plastered a comforting smile on her face, ready to welcome them aboard and explain how she was the sole survivor of such a tragedy. After all, she would have an entirely new flight crew and passengers to greet, and their souls were so tantalizingly ripe for the taking. She was now more than a mere flight attendant. She was the entity's emissary, its instrument of harvest in this world. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Thank you for watching.